Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another Future State Fool's Gold review, and this time I'll be covering Superman Worlds of War issue 2, to which it has 4 stories. And as you can see, the total for this one converted in Australian dollars is $14.55. So it's got quite a lot to live up to in showing how much it's worth, or each story is worth. As you can see to the left hand side, that is how I rate the system, cover, art, story, and how much I believe they're worth. So starting off with the cover, did the cover in any way help with the shaping of the story? I'd have to say in mediocre part it did. So for that it got a 6 out of 10, to which I believe it was worth $1.25. So let's move into the internal art for the first story. This is some art towards the beginning of the story. I'll now move to some of the art towards the end, because I've got 4 stories to cover here, including this one. And here is the art towards the end. The art felt pretty consistent as it was last time, to which I believe the art is actually worth, to which I believe the art rating to which I give this is a 6 out of 10. To which again I believe it's worth $1.25. But what about the story? Okay, what locations do we get in the story to which help the world building in this? Of course, we've got Smallville and of course Warworld. What about the cast of characters? Superman and Mongol, they're about the only characters I seem to recognize and sort of care about in this. As for the additional extras, we still don't know who the fuck they are, and I don't really give a fuck about them. Putting it bluntly. It's just a useless part of the cast. I don't like how Philip Kennedy Johnson has sort of like brought this story across. When in the first issue, he did pretty much the same thing that he did in this issue. It feels like he hasn't learnt, to which I give the story rating 3 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth 70 cents. He should have started this off with Superman in Warworld and then show what was happening on Earth afterwards. Like, he could have kept that going for, say, a majority of the storytelling, and then in the last 5 pages show what was happening on Earth. He could have done that with the first issue, and he could have done this again with the second. So apart from that, let's move on to the next story. Moving on to the next story, as you can see some of the art. The art is nice, it is consistent, but did it really work well with the story? Yeah. I think last time I gave this score a little bit higher. This time I'm setting it around the middle mark, 5 out of 10. With both 5 out of 10, especially for the art, to which I believe it's worth $1. So, let's see a little bit more of the art before I cover the story. Okay, this is a little bit more of the art. Now to work with the story. This story around, of course, Mr. Miracle, Shiloh Norman. We've still learnt nothing about what's happened with Scott Free. With the character. Like, has he actually died or not? It would be nice to sort of see that within the story, but of course it hasn't been brought across in any of the Mr. Miracle stories. And you never really see him sort of mourning for scot-free Mr. Miracle, which I find is very stupid, as it gives the character no character. I enjoy the art in this, to which I gave it a 5 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1. As for the story, about the only locations that we got in this was wherever the fuck Mr. Miracle was on Warworld. It wasn't even fucking pointed out, or wherever the fuck he was in space. Like, what sector? Is he somewhere near the Green Lanterns? I don't fucking know. So, why should I fucking care? That's how the writing's been done. And where is the care in this storytelling? There is none. Only for one little place. And that's something in relation to what appears to be like a flashback with this Jonathan Syndicate Kent. That's right, I'm calling him Jonathan Syndicate Kent. I have my reasons. Especially if you checked out the Superman of Metropolis story recently. There, it will explain to you why I call him that. Of course, we do see John Syndicate Kent. We also get the Fortress of Solitude. We really don't get any conversation in relation to that, or if he had any conversation in relation to that. Of course, we've got something linking to when Metropolis was bottled within the story, and it just fell dead in the water, to which I gave the story 3 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth 70 cents. Overall total of this story is $1.70. The total for the previous story, $3.20. Let's move on to the third one, having to do with Midnighter. Was there any improvement? So, starting off with the art for Midnighter. This is some art around the beginning. I'll now jump to some art towards the end. And this is some of the art towards the end. So, what did I think of the art in this story, and did it really work with the story? Well, it fell on deaf ears. It felt mediocre. Didn't really feel consistent in some places, but other places it sort of was consistent. To which I gave it 5 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1. What about the story? Now, as you know, I enjoy seeing locations in the story. Did we get locations in the story? You bloody bet we did. I enjoyed that, but did it actually help the overall story rating? We got the location of the Chrysalis satellite, which is on Warworld. We also visited Earth. The characters that we get to see in this were Midnighter and what appears to could be Apollo, but isn't Apollo. The character that he was up against felt like a shapeshifter, and the story really didn't drag me in. It didn't capture my attention, to which I gave it 2 out of 10, to which I believe it was worth 50 cents, giving an overall total to this story of $1.50. Time to move to, last but not least, the fourth story. As we jump into the fourth story, we've got the story of Black Racer, and it feels like their attempt to escape off the planet. The art was actually really done in this, and it seemed consistent again in some places, not so consistent in other places. To which I gave the art overall 5 out of 10, to which I believe the story is worth $1. But what about the story? What locations did we get to go to on Warworld? And that's right, we are still on Warworld. So we ended up visiting the area of Ring free, and also Ring 2. So in one of them, it was sort of like a control room to which the Black Racer used to escape off the planet. It was probably about the only thing as well exciting with the story too. To which I gave the story rating 5 out of 10. It sort of feels roughly about the same as the last time I covered this issue, to which it gives an overall total of $2. Well, until then, please don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Let's keep it colourful, and have yourself an awesome day. Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29, back again for a Rainbow Press and Comics Fool's Gold Future State review. And this time I'm going to be covering issue 2 of both Shazam and Immortal Wonder Woman. As you can see to the left hand side here, this is how I rate the comics. As I rate the cover, art and story, and how much I think they're worth, which is also connected to the currency conversion and how much I think they're actually worth. As you can see with the Shazam one, I paid $7.15, and for the Immortal Wonder Woman, I paid $10.75. So, time to get started onto Shazam. So, jumping into Shazam, let's start off with the cover. Does the cover in any way help bring across what happens in the story? You bloody bet it does. In fact, it was really good and it was really interesting, even as to how it works within the story. To which I gave the cover a 7 out of 10, to which I believe the cover is worth $1.50. Now, it's time to move into the internal art. This is some of the art at the beginning. I'll now jump towards the middle. Absolutely brilliant double page spread there. And time for towards the end. Well, moving into this, as the art towards the end, did the art really help with the story? In this case, I believe it actually did. To which I gave the art 6 out of 10, to which I gave it a total of $1.25. So, time to move on to the story. As I move on to the story, what are some of the locations that are visited in this place, to help get an understanding of what's happening in the world of Shazam, and also some of his comrades, some of his compatriots and companions that help him along the way? Well, of course, we visit our Hal with Necron, Los Angeles, London, New York City, Morningside Heights. What about the cast of characters? How do we go with the cast of characters? Of course, there was Billy Batson, Shazam. We got the Question, of course, the Spectre, and Deadman, and a couple of other people who were a little bit hard to identify in this one, but did it still help with the story? Again, I believe it did, because the story continues off from the last issue. In regards to Billy Batson's contract with Necron, and due to that, he does get interference, care of the Spectre, and as well as Deadman, who release him from the contract, but in the process, it comes with consequences, being the unkindness. And I thought that was really clever within the story. to which I gave the story 6 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1.25. Time to move on to the Immortal Wonder Woman. Now, just so you don't get confused, I know that you can see 3 particular things here where it says Immortal Wonder Woman and it says featuring Diana Prince and Nubia. This actually has 2 stories in it, not 3. And I'll be rating the main story as well as the additional story. So starting off with the cover, does this cover actually help with the story? I believe it does, to which I gave the cover a 6 out of 10. So it's time to move on and see the internal art for the first story. I'll show you some art towards the beginning, middle, and of course the end. This is some of the art at the beginning. Really fantastic. I enjoy the feminine appearance to which the artist has done with Wonder Woman here. I'll now move towards the middle of the story. This is some of the art around the middle. And I'll now cover the last towards the end. An absolutely beautiful array of colours that are used within this artwork, to which I gave the artwork 6 out of 10, to which I believe it was worth $1.25. Sorry about that. Little mistake there. When I was putting the tablet down. What about the story? What did the story give us in regards to locations? Well, it looked like that there was more than one location, but not all the locations were pointed out. To which the story loses actually a lot of points from me. And I really didn't enjoy that. But how did it go with the cast of characters? Of course, it gave us Diana Prince, who is Wonder Woman. Of course, it gave us the character of Superman. It also gave us Darkseid as well as Spectre. The story seems to address issues like dreams, hopes, but if you also include Darkseid, I think it also includes nightmares. Such as things that you don't want to see in the future. It would have been nice to see a little bit more addition in regards to the locations within the story. To which I give the story rating 3 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth 70 cents. But you know what, whilst I'm here, I'm going to recommend something off Becky Cloonan's that I do actually enjoy. And that is Gotham Academy. Go and pick that up. In fact, I enjoy Gotham Academy more so than what I've enjoyed of this first story, which was done by Becky Cloonan. So go and pick that up. That's my recommendation for you. So, time to move on to the next story. Moving on to some of the art in regards to the next story. Of course, we've got a nice picture of Nubia there. I enjoy the art that's being done by the artist here. And I enjoy the way how they capture the facial features, as well as the background to which the character is in. It's really fantastic. So let me show you some art towards the middle of this story. This is some of the art around the middle of the story. I'll now cover the end. And this is the end. So what did I give the rating for this art? I gave the rating 6 out of 10, to which I believe the story was worth, to which I believe the art was worth $1.25. But what about the actual story? It is now time to move into that. So, where are some of the locations that Nubia went to in this story? Of course, this first part of the story around Nubia seems to revolve around a flashback, and it wasn't very clear in the flashback where it was actually being held. If I were to guess, it was in Africa, but it wasn't clearly pointed out that it was in Africa. What about there was another place that was brought up in this, which is, of course, the Ebony Club. Now, as I mentioned before, one was not set clear, to which one is set clear, which is where we return to the Ebony Club, to which Nubia also meets up with her auntie. In the cast of characters, of course, we've got Nubia, we've got Grail, and of course Cersei, which was really nice to see within the story and the interactions within it. And we can't forget her auntie. And how this story sort of worked, it came off way better than the actual first story, to which I gave this story 5 out of 10, which is about a mediocre to okay-ish. It was worth it. It was readable, to which I believe it's worth about $1. Well, it's time to finish up, and please don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get those notifications. Until then, let's keep it colourful. And if you've now made it to the end of this video, you are awesome and have an awesome day. Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29, back again for another Future State Fool's Gold review for Rainbow Press and Comics. Well, this time I'll be reviewing the next Batman, which has 2 additional stories in it, and Catwoman, which is done by Ram V. Now, the next Batman is written by Ridley. I've not really been enjoying the run so far. But to move on to my rating for the Fool's Gold, I rate the cover, art and story, and how much I think they're worth, but also looking at how much they're worth in how much I paid for them in currency, and there'll be a big comparison as to how much these stories actually lost in cash. Whether they were done poorly or they did really well and they gained a lot back. As you can see, for the next Batman, I paid $7.99 for it, which is $14.55 Australian in the currency conversion, and $3.99, which is $7.15 in the Australian currency conversion. So, time to move on to the next Batman. So, starting off, first things first, does the cover of the next Batman, issue 4, really help with the story? No, not really. As nice a cover as it is, it actually got one of my lowest ratings on the channel, especially within Fool's Gold. And that is 0 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $0 and 0 cents. highly disappointing, I'm afraid to say. I really think the cover should have been done in a way to work with the story, and it just failed epically. So let's move into the internal art. Did it actually make better headway? The internal art, to see if it made better headway than the actual cover. Starting at some art at the beginning, then we'll move to the middle, and then finally the end. This is some of the art at the beginning. Really nice, I must admit. I'll now move towards the middle. Really nicely done with the art done here towards the middle. I'll now move to the end. And this is some of the art towards the end. I must admit, I really did like what the artist did here with the story. Scripting must have been a real pain in the ass for this. I mean it. It must have been a real pain in the ass for this, because the art in this really makes the story. In fact, I think the art is way better than the story. But I'll get to that soon enough. This is where I gave the art 7 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1.50. Now, to the actual story itself. Of course, we know the location is in Gotham, but like Ridley did so again, where are the rest of the other locations where you're taking this character? Because I don't know where the fuck I am. This is terrible. Like, surely in your own career you remember to add locations to your movies. Where the fuck is it in this? And then, of course, the cast of characters. Of course, being Jason Fox, who I will not call or acknowledge as Batman. He needs his own character identity. Call him the Iron Knight, and you're welcome to take the idea from me. Right? And use that instead. Right? I would rather call Jason Fox the Iron Knight instead of Batman. Why? Because we've already got a Batman-like character in the Lucius Fox family, and that's Luke Fox as Batwing. Of course, there was a person before him who played Batwing, and there are some people out there who actually enjoy that character over Luke Fox, and that's understandable too. I really can't recommend anything that I have seen of Ridley's, let alone read of Ridley's, to which you can go and check out for yourself, which is 10 times better than this. To which I gave the story 0 out of 10. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to enjoy this story. It just came off terrible. So time to move on to the second story, which has to deal with the Batgirls. And starting off with the second story in regards to the Batgirls, here's some art to begin with. And I'll give my rating after I show you around the middle of the story, and then finally the end. This is some art around the middle, and now I'll move to the end. And of course, this is the art around the end. I must admit, I really enjoyed what Vita Ayala did scripting-wise with this story, and how she brought it across to the artist, because it's really going to affect the score in this, but in a very positive way. To which I gave the art 7 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1.50. But what about the story? This story takes place, of course, in Gotham, in the Magistrate's Detention Center, Of course, we do go to the other places, such as a resistance base, and we meet a good cast of characters, of course, being those who have worn the title of Batgirl, of course being Cassandra Cain, plus finally them getting Barbara Gordon free, which was really nice. It was really good, and of course the members of the Resistance, to which I also gave the story 7 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1.50. Well, time to move to the third story. Oh boy, I've got a lot to say about that one. So moving on to the third story, this is some of the art in it around the beginning. I'll now show towards the end. And this is some of the art towards the end. For the art, I decided to give it a rating of 5 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1. But for the actual story itself, it takes place in the Slam. Hold on. It takes place in Slam Bradley's cafe of sorts. Then we meet the magistrate. Back to the Magistrates HQ. Then we go to upstate Gotham. I really enjoyed those little things, but the story just didn't really work with the characters. Of course, we've got, for the characters, we've got the cosplay sirens. That's what I'm calling them, because that's what they still look like. They look nothing like the Gotham City sirens. And of course, one of the members of the villains in the area of the Magistrate. To which I gave this story a 0 out of 10. Very sad to say, but I really didn't enjoy it that much. Well, let's get to something I did enjoy, and that's Catwoman. Now, as we move into Catwoman, did this cover really help with the story? Surprisingly, it really did, because yes, we get to see Black Mask, Catwoman, plus some of the other characters that are shown on it. To which I gave the cover 7 out of 10, to which I believe it to be worth $1.50. Now to the internal art. Starting off at the beginning. I must admit, I really enjoyed this entrance into the story with the artwork. Now to move to the middle of the story. Absolutely beautiful middle to this story, especially with the artwork, and I enjoy the interactions with the characters. Ram V really did us good in this story, especially in what he let his artists know. Now towards the end of the story, and this is towards the end of the story in regards to the art, to which I gave the art 7 out of 10, to which I believe it's worth $1.50. So let's move on to the story. Of course, with the story, we've got locations. As you saw in the beginning, we saw the alley town. And of course, I think it's not Bloodhaven, it's somewhere else. Sorry, I didn't write it down very clearly for myself to share. And of course, the cast of characters, which you do get to see. Of course, we've got Cheshire, we've got Catwoman, to which this story centers around. We've got Batman, which is Bruce Wayne, and Talia. I enjoyed their interactions. And as you can see, this was basically a story of how Catwoman was meant to go out of her way to try to save Bruce Wayne, but in turn, it was actually Talia who did the saving. Talia and Batman over Catwoman and Batman. Plus, on top of that, Damian needs a stable family relationship. Just pointing that out. Especially between both parents. And it would make him a better crime fighter. Just saying. So, how did that affect the story? In this great train robbery of sorts. Well, I gave the story 6 out of 10. I must admit, I did enjoy it for what it was. There wasn't much bad about it, but I did like the art. I did like how things were brought across. And on top of that, I'm sorry, but Bruce is married to his job. He ain't gonna marry Catwoman. To which this story gets an overall total of $4.25. The previous stories that were brought up before, the total was $1.50 for the first story in Dark Detective, $3 for the second story in Next Batman, not Dark Detective, and $1 for the last story in the Next Batman. And for this story, $4.25 overall. Well, until then, please don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And let's keep it colourful. If you've now made it to the end of the video, you are awesome and have an awesome day.